You think you can just show up here and disrespect this family?
I've got every right to be here.
You have no right to be here, Marine.
You don't know anything about him.
When a corrupt cop named Clay Donovan mocks the very black man he killed at the victim's funeral, his cruelty ignites a storm that cannot be silenced. Community voices rise, family wounds tear open, and the victim's brother Elijah, a battle-scarred veteran, confronts not only systemic racism but Clay's unchecked brutality. From whispered grief in living rooms to explosive confrontations at council chambers, each chapter exposes how abuse of power festers until resistance is born. Clay's arrogance peaks as he live-streams threats and desecrates a grave. But Elijah's strength draws unexpected reinforcement from Marcus, Clay's own Delta Force brother, who chooses truth over blood. What follows is a tense, cinematic reckoning, clashes in public, raw confrontations in private, betrayal turned to courage, until the night Clayface is not silenced but a united front of witnesses, cameras, and brothers standing against him. The verdict, the chance, and the fall of a badge bring poetic justice at last, proving that fear can be broken, silence can be shattered, and even those shielded by power must answer to truth. The church was heavy with silence, air thick with the kind of grief that bends backs and dries throats. Rows of mourners sat pressed together, eyes lowered, hands clenched. At the front, Marcus Reed's casket gleamed beneath dim light, polished wood reflecting the sorrow of his mother's trembling fingers as she rested them on its edge. Lord, Reverend Carter's voice cracked as he spoke, received this son who was taken too soon. A ripple of muffled sobs rolled through the pews. Marcus's mother whispered, my baby, until her words drowned in her hands. The doors creaked. Heavy boots echoed down the aisle. The sound froze the church. Heads turned, and then gasps broke the silence. Officer Clay Donovan swaggered in, still in uniform. You've got to be kidding me, someone muttered. Clay didn't bow, didn't pause. He walked straight toward the casket, smirk tugging at his lips. Guess I should say thanks, he said loudly, voice bouncing off the walls. Kid made me look like a hero on the evening news. The pews erupted with low, furious murmurs. Get him out, a woman hissed. Clay leaned casually against the pulpit, eyes sweeping the crowd like a man surveying property. Relax. Just came to pay my respects. Never got the chance to thank him for making my trigger finger look so fast. Gasps cracked through the room. A few men stood halfway, fists clenched, but Reverend Carter threw up his arms. Stay seated, the Reverend said, voice shaking. This is God's house. Clay chuckled. God's house looks more like a clubhouse for people who don't know when to quit whining. Marcus's sister shot up from her pew. You murdered him, and now you, her mother clutched her arm, yanking her back down. Don't, baby, don't. He'll come for us. Clay's grin widened at their restraint. He tapped Marcus's casket twice with his knuckles, like knocking on a door. Empty now. Nothing left to cry about. The room shook with restrained fury. No one moved. No one dared at the back. A tall figure stepped silently into the shadows near the doorway. Elijah Reed. His uniform wasn't visible, but discipline was carved into his posture. Every movement precise. He said nothing, eyes fixed on Clay, memorizing every smirk, every cruel word. Clay turned, lifted 2 fingers in a mocking salute, and strolled back down the aisle. Thanks for the show, folks. Be sure to keep tuning in. You never know when I'll give you another one. The doors banged shut behind him. For a long stretch, the church was silent but for the sound of muffled sobbing. Reverend Carter swallowed hard, voice trembling. Let us continue. Elijah's eyes stayed on the closed doors, his jaw clenched until the muscle twitched. He said nothing, but in the silence, a promise began forming. Clay Donovan leaned back in the corner booth of O'Malley's, the cop bar 2 blocks from the precinct. His boots were still dirty from stomping through the cemetery, but he wore the dirt like a medal. His laugh carried above the jukebox. You should have seen their faces, he bragged, slamming his glass down. Whole church froze like I'd walked in with a lightning bolt. That mama nearly fainted when I knocked on the casket. A couple of off-duty officers chuckled uneasily. One raised his beer in half-hearted salute. Man, you're crazy. Crazy, Clay scoffed. I'm untouchable. Department loves me. Media loves me. Politicians, they're lining up to shake my hand. He pointed around the table. They don't care about some dead thug. They care about order. And I am order. Laughter followed, some forced, some genuine. No one challenged him. Across town, Elijah sat at his mother's kitchen table. The blinds were drawn. The house smelled faintly of old coffee and damp wood. His mother sat across from him, eyes red and swollen. Her hands twisted a dish towel in nervous knots. "You shouldn't have come back," she whispered. "I had to," Elijah said. Her voice cracked. "I buried one son. I can't bury another." Elijah's jaw flexed, but he said nothing. "You don't know what that man is," she went on. "He walks in the open, does what he wants, and nobody stops him. They protect him. Even when everyone knows what he is, they still—" She stopped, pressing the towel to her mouth. "I know exactly what he is." Elijah cut in, voice low but steady. Her eyes searched his face. "Then you know you can't fight him." "I'm not here to fight him." She shook her head violently. "Yes, you are. I see it in you. You came back with war in your eyes. Don't lie to your mama." Elijah's silence was heavier than words. At O'Malley's, Clay was still holding court. "Mayor called me this morning," he said, smirking. "Said the community's making noise. But don't worry, he's got my back. As long as I keep the streets quiet, I can do whatever the hell I want. That's the beauty of the badge." He lifted his drink, to being above the law. Glasses clinked. A rookie officer named Mason hesitated before raising his eyes flicked downward, but Clay caught it. "What's that, Mason?" "Don't like the taste." Mason stammered. "No, sir, I just wasn't thirsty." Clay grinned, leaning close. "Lesson 1, kid, if you don't run this town, it runs you, and you don't want people like that family running it." Mason's throat worked. He forced a weak nod. Back in the kitchen, Elijah rose from his chair. His mother's hand shot out, grabbing his wrist. "Promise me," she whispered. "Promise me you won't do anything." He looked down at her trembling hand, then at her tired eyes. He wanted to lie, to say the words she needed, but his mouth wouldn't form them. Instead, he gently pulled free. "I'll keep you safe." "That's not the same thing," she whispered. Elijah didn't answer. Later that night, Clay strutted through the precinct hallways, tossing his keys in one hand. He passed Mason, who sat at his desk, typing half-heartedly. Clay slapped his shoulder. "Loosen up, kid. You're looking at a living legend. Stick close, and you'll go far." Mason forced a smile. "Yes, sir." Clay winked, striding off toward his office. Mason watched him go, unease twisting in his gut. In his childhood bedroom, Elijah sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the folded flag on the dresser. The room hadn't changed in years. Posters still peeled from the walls. The air smelled faintly of dust and old books. His phone buzzed with a message from an old unit buddy. "You all right? Heard about your brother." Elijah typed back one word, "Here," then turned the phone face down. The silence pressed in. His fists tightened on his knees. Somewhere across town, Clay was laughing. The barber shop on 9th Street buzzed with clippers and low conversation. Old jazz played faintly from a radio, almost drowned out by the talk circling around the same name, Clay Donovan. Muttered an older man in the corner chair, shaking his head. "Ain't no different from the ones my granddaddy used to warn me about. Just traded the rope for a badge." A younger voice shot back, sharp with frustration. "Yeah, but he ain't hiding it." Man walked into a funeral and spat on a coffin, and nothing happened. "If we don't do something," the barber raised his hand. "Keep your voice down." The young man sneered. "Why? He already knows we're scared. That's the problem." We whisper while he laughs out loud. A low murmur of agreement rolled through the room. Elijah sat in the corner, cape draped over his shoulders, hair half-trimmed. He said nothing, just listened. His eyes stayed on the mirror, but his ears caught every word. "Whole neighborhoods shaking," another man said quietly. "People scared to walk home at night, not because of gangs, but because he might be cruising. Scared to even talk about him," the barber added, glancing toward the window. "Man's got ears everywhere. Don't think for a second this shop ain't being watched." The old man in the chair muttered. "It's been this way. Different faces, same story. We keep our heads down, survive." Elijah's jaw flexed. Still, he said nothing. Outside, the sound of an engine rumbled closer. The barber shop fell silent. The radio hissed. Clippers paused. Conversations cut off mid-sentence. Through the window, a black and white cruiser rolled to a stop. Clay Donovan stepped out, sunglasses on despite the cloudy sky. He strolled across the sidewalk with the swagger of someone who knew no doors were closed to him. The bell over the shop door jingled. He stepped in like it was his second home. Well, Clay drawled, scanning the room. "Look at all the chatter. Y'all gossiping about me again." Silence, eyes dropped. The barber set his clippers down with trembling fingers. Clay smiled. Wolfish. Didn't mean to interrupt story time. Go on. I like to hear what folks think about their sheriff in shining armor. No one spoke. Clay strolled past the chairs, tapping the old man's cane with his boot. You know, back in the day, folks respected authority, didn't whine, didn't scheme. They knew their place. The old man's lips pressed tight, but he didn't look up. Clay leaned against the counter, smirking at the barber. Cut straight, now. Don't want our soldier boy here walking out crooked. His eyes flicked to Elijah, sitting in the chair. Elijah met his gaze in the mirror, calm, expressionless. He didn't blink. Clay tilted his head. You, the quiet type, figures, family full of crybabies, but at least one of you learned to shut up. Still, no response. The silence stretched. Then Clay slapped the counter and grinned. That's what I like. Respect. Keep it that way. He strolled out, boots heavy on the floor, bell jingling as the door closed behind him. Moments later, the cruiser rolled away, engine fading into distance. The barber exhaled hard, picking up his clippers again. Man's poison. The young man clenched his fists. And we just sit here and let him do it. The old man rasped. Talking won't save you. Talking never did. Elijah stood, brushing hair from his shoulders, his voice cut low, steady, carrying more weight than volume. Silence won't save you either. The shop went still, heads turned, but before anyone could speak, Elijah paid for his cut and walked out into the street, leaving the bell to jingle behind him. Clay's cruiser turned down another block. He rolled his window down, sunglasses glinting. He leaned out, barking at two teenagers on the sidewalk. Don't loiter, move along. They hurried off without a word. Clay laughed, shaking his head, like sheep. His laughter echoed off brick walls as he drove on. Back in the barber shop, whispers rose again, softer this time. Who was that man? One of the younger customers asked, glancing toward the door Elijah had just walked through. The barber answered quietly, almost to himself. Marcus's brother, the one who went to war. A murmur rippled through the room, somewhere between hope and fear. Outside, Elijah walked with steady steps, eyes forward. His silence wasn't retreat, it was calculation. Night draped the cemetery in shadows. Damp grass glistened under the pale wash of moonlight. A single flashlight beam jittered across the headstones, accompanied by the sound of boots crunching gravel. Clay Donovan stood at Marcus Reed's grave, uniform jacket unbuttoned, a beer in one hand, phone, camera in the other. Smile for the fans, he muttered, angling the phone toward the headstone. He kicked dirt across the flowers, laughing. Here lies a lesson: don't reach where you don't belong. He cracked open the beer, pouring it over the grave like an offering. Drink up, Marcus. You earned it. The recording light blinked. He leaned close, sneering into the lens. Thugs die. Cops live. That's the natural order. He uploaded it on the spot, the next morning. Marcus's family saw the video before breakfast. His mother collapsed against the couch, wailing. Marcus's sister threw her phone across the room, sobbing in rage. Neighbors gathered outside, voices trembling with disbelief. How can he just, right there at the grave, no shame, no fear? Elijah stood in the doorway, face carved from stone. The cries swirled around him, but his eyes never left the screen still glowing on the cracked phone. By afternoon, Clay strutted into town square, uniform crisp, sunglasses gleaming. People scattered at the sight of him. But this time, not everyone moved. A small crowd lingered, phones appeared, whispers rose. And then Elijah stepped forward. He moved without haste, boots measured against the pavement. The crowd shifted, opening space between predator and prey. Clay smirked. Well, the soldier finally shows his face. Elijah stopped a few feet away. His voice was steady, carrying across the square. You went to my brother's grave last night. Clay laughed. What? You mad I left him a drink? Thought he could use it in hell. Gasps erupted. A woman sobbed. The crowd's phones lifted higher. Elijah didn't flinch. You call that courage? Sneaking into a cemetery at night, mocking the dead. Clay's smirk faltered for half a beat before returning. Better than crying like the rest of you cowards. Elijah's gaze cut through him. No, cowards hide behind uniforms. Cowards shoot unarmed men and brag about it. Cowards film themselves spitting on graves because deep down they know they're nothing. The words rang like strikes of a hammer. The crowd stirred, murmurs swelling into voices. Clay's jaw tightened. He stepped closer, finger jabbing the air. You think your soldier act scares me? This is my town. My rules. You're just another angry face in the crowd. Elijah's reply came sharp as a blade. No, I'm the mirror you've spent your life avoiding, and everyone here is finally seeing you for what you are. The crowd erupted shouts, cheers, cries of anger. Phones recorded every second. Clay's fists clenched at his sides. His eyes darted across the crowd, catching the defiance, the refusal to shrink. His smirk cracked, replaced by something darker. Unease. He leaned in close, voice low but trembling with rage. Watch yourself, soldier. Step too far, and I'll put you in the ground next to your brother. Elijah didn't blink. Try. The square rang with silence. Then, a child's voice broke it. He's not scared of you. Clay spun toward the sound, but the crowd had closed ranks, their voices rising, no longer whispers, but shouts. Coward. Justice for Marcus. We saw what you did. For the first time, Clay wasn't the loudest in the square. He forced a laugh, but it came hollow. Enjoy your little show. This won't change a damn thing. He shoved past Elijah, boots hammering the pavement, muttering curses as he stalked back to his cruiser. The crowd didn't scatter. They held their ground, voices carrying long after the engine faded. Later that evening, Elijah sat at his mother's table again. The video of the confrontation had already spread online, replayed and shared. His mother's eyes were wet but proud. You shouldn't have done that, she whispered. That you gave people back their voices. Elijah's silence was answer enough. Clay paced in his office, slamming drawers, kicking chairs. His reflection glared back at him from the darkened window. They think they can humiliate me, he snarled. I'll show them what happens when they pick sides. His fists slammed the desk. For the first time, the laugh didn't come. The precinct was quiet after hours. Most desks sat empty, paperwork stacked like little walls against silence. Mason lingered at his post, typing slowly, eyes darting to the captain's office where Clay Donovan paced like a caged animal. Clay's voice cut through the stillness. They think they can film me, post it, laugh at me. Not in my town, not in my department. He slammed a folder onto the desk. A half-empty bottle rattled beside it. Mason flinched, but didn't move. Clay's eyes found him. You, rookie, come in here. Mason obeyed, steps hesitant. Clay shoved a chair out with his boot. Sit. The rookie sat, hands pressed together in his lap. Clay leaned forward, eyes bloodshot. You saw that circus yesterday. Soldier boy standing tall, crowd chanting like a mob. You think that was strength. That was weakness. Weak men bark when they think they've found a leader. Mason swallowed hard. Sir, the video, it's everywhere. People are angry. Good, Clay snapped. Let them be angry. Anger burns out. Fear lasts. They'll remember who holds the gun. Mason hesitated. His voice wavered. But, sir, mocking the grave, was that really necessary? The room froze. Clay's stare drilled into him. What did you say? Mason's throat went dry. Nothing, sir. Just maybe it stirred things up more than it needed to. Clay laughed, sharp and cold. You sound like them, afraid of noise. Listen, kid. This badge isn't just metal, it's armor. You wear it, you're untouchable. You want to survive in this department. You stick with me. Forget feelings. He jabbed a finger into Mason's chest. Brotherhood, that's the only word that matters. Mason nodded quickly, though his eyes wavered. Across town, Elijah walked the cracked sidewalks with Mason's words replaying in his head. The rookie had approached him the night before, voice trembling in the dark. They cover for him, always. Reports vanish, complaints disappear. I don't know what to do. Elijah had studied him in silence before answering. You know exactly what to do, he'd said. You just don't want to pay the price. Mason had stammered. You don't understand. If I go against him, I'm finished. My career, my safety. Elijah's tone cut like steel. And if you don't, you're finished as a man. The rookie's face had twisted, torn between fear and shame. He had walked away without replying. Back in the precinct, Clay poured himself another drink. You've got potential, Mason, he said. Almost friendly now. You just need spine. Don't let these people's whining get in your head. They're not like us. They don't bleed blue. Mason forced a nod, though his gut churned. Yes, sir. Clay smirked. Good boy. Stick with me, and you'll rise fast. But cross me. His voice dropped. Ask around. Nobody survives crossing me. Mason excused himself as quickly as he could, leaving the office with his pulse pounding. That night, Clay prowled the streets like a wolf starved for dominance. He pulled a man from a corner store for loitering, slamming him against the wall, while the man begged, He shoved two teenagers against their car, accusing them of theft before letting them crawl away humiliated. Each act louder, crueler, desperate to reassert control. The community watched from behind curtains and cracked doors, whispers turning to curses, phones recorded, but still fear held back, open resistance. Elijah sat in his childhood room, darkness wrapping around him. The folded flag on the dresser glimmered faintly in moonlight. He spoke aloud, though no one was there. You told me once, Marcus, that silence is worse than pain. I didn't believe you then. I do now. His fists tightened. They protect him like family, but family's supposed to protect the living, not bury the dead. His breath slowed, his eyes hardened. This ends soon. At the precinct, the following day, Mason found Elijah waiting outside. The soldier leaned against the lamppost, expression unreadable. You still hiding? Elijah asked. Mason's voice shook. You don't understand the pressure. I understand perfectly, Elijah interrupted. You think brotherhood is about keeping his secrets. It's not. Brotherhood is about standing where it matters. Who are you standing with? Mason's silence was answer enough. Elijah stepped close, his voice a quiet dagger. Every time you protect him, you put another shovel of dirt on my brother's grave. You betray your badge, and you betray yourself. Mason flinched as if struck. Elijah turned, walking away without another word. His boots echoed on the pavement, leaving Mason standing in the weight of his own cowardice. Clay watched from the precinct window, cigarette burning between his fingers. He saw Mason outside, saw the way the rookie's shoulders slumped under Elijah's words. Clay's lip curled. You think he's your savior, he muttered, but he's just another target. He crushed the cigarette into the sill, sparks scattering into the night. The city council chamber was packed to suffocation. Wooden benches overflowed. People lined the walls, and dozens stood in the hallways straining to hear. Faces were hard, eyes heavy with grief and rage. On the agenda, community concerns, officer conduct. The council chair cleared her throat. We will hear statements. Please maintain order. A woman stepped forward, voice trembling but firm. My nephew can't sleep since Donovan pulled him from his car and put a gun in his mouth. And when we filed a complaint, it disappeared. Murmurs of agreement swept the crowd. Another man stood. We bury our kids while he laughs at us. How many more graves before someone stops him? The room pulsed with rising anger. The doors swung open. Clay Donovan strode in, uniform pressed, badge gleaming. The chamber went silent except for the hard thud of his boots. He smirked at the crowd. Didn't want to miss my fan club, he drawled, dropping into a seat near the front as though he owned it. Gasps rippled through the room. Some shouted, get him out. But the council chair only tapped her gavel weakly. Clay leaned back, hands laced behind his head, eyes sweeping the crowd with open mockery. Elijah rose slowly from his seat near the aisle. His presence stilled the room in a different way. He didn't rush, didn't shout. His voice carried with measured weight. My brother was buried 2 weeks ago. Clay Donovan put him in the ground, and 2 days ago, he desecrated that grave and broadcast it for the world to see. The room shuddered with cries, gasps, murmurs. Clay grinned wider, but his jaw twitched beneath it. Elijah continued, you tell us to stay calm. You tell us to trust the system. But the system kneels to men like him. We sit here begging for crumbs of justice while he mocks us in daylight. Shouts rose. Yes, that's right. Elijah's eyes burned into Clay. You are not a hero. You are not a protector. You are a coward with a gun, shielded by silence. The chamber exploded cheers, cries, furious voices overlapping. The gavel slammed. Order, order. Clay shot to his feet, face red. You don't get to call me a coward. You think because you've played soldier overseas, you can come here and lecture me. He jabbed a finger at Elijah. Step outside. Let's see how tough you are without your audience. Phones whipped up, recording. Every lens pointed at them. Elijah didn't move. His voice cut through the chaos. I don't need to fight you. You've already lost. They don't fear you anymore. The crowd roared, voices cascading into chants. Justice, justice. Clay's hand twitched near his holster. For a heartbeat, silence crushed the room. The sight of his fingers brushing the gun was enough to freeze breath in lungs. Then a voice from the back shouted, go ahead, show us who you really are. The spell broke. The crowd erupted louder, no longer pleading but defying. Clay's hand dropped from his weapon, but the crack in his control was visible. Sweat gleamed at his temple. His smirk faltered, replaced with something jagged, fear disguised as fury. He barked, this isn't over, and shoved his way toward the exit. The crowd didn't part in silence. They jeered, shouted, held their phones high. The chant followed him down the hall, echoing after he slammed the doors behind him. The council chair trembled at the podium, gavel useless against the storm. Elijah remained standing, eyes forward, for the first time. The community wasn't whispering. That night, Clay sat alone in his cruiser, parked under a streetlight. He slammed the steering wheel, breath ragged. They think they can humiliate me. They think one speech changes anything. He pressed his forehead to the wheel, voice low and shaking. I'll show them. I'll show him. The night air carried a strange stillness, the kind that pressed against the skin like a warning. Elijah stood in his mother's backyard, shirt sleeves rolled, calloused hands resting on the railing of the old porch. The voices of the crowd still echoed in his mind, justice, justice. But underneath them, Clay Donovan's sneer burned hotter. He felt it before he heard it. Footsteps in the grass, controlled, careful, trained, not the stomp of a drunk cop. A shadow emerged from the tree line. Marcus, Elijah said without turning. His younger brother stepped into the porch light, not in uniform, not in fatigues, but his posture screamed soldier. Marcus Donovan, Clay's blood. Elijah finally faced him. You came. Marcus's jaw flexed. I told you I would. For a moment, neither moved. Two men forged by war, standing on opposite banks of a river of blood. Elijah broke the silence. You watched him mock my brother's coffin, and you wore the same name as him. Marcus's eyes narrowed. Don't mistake me for him. Clay's blood runs in my veins, but his rot doesn't. Elijah's voice hardened. Blood isn't enough. He's been shielded by silence his whole life. Are you here to shield him again? Marcus stepped closer, voice sharp. If I were here to shield him, I wouldn't have come in the dark. I wouldn't be standing in your yard while my brother hunts you. The air between them thrummed with danger. Elijah studied him, searching for lies. He found only exhaustion in Marcus's eyes, the exhaustion of a soldier who had seen too much, lost too much. Marcus spoke lower. Clay called me last night, ranting. Said he'd finish what he started. He wasn't just talking about your brother. He meant you. Elijah's chest tightened. He'd expected it, but hearing it aloud sharpened the threat. Marcus continued, fists clenched at his sides. He's unraveling, but make no mistake, when Clay unravels, people die. I've seen him snap bones over nothing. You think he won't come for you, for your family? Elijah's voice cut like stone. Then, stand with us. Stand against him. Marcus's gaze faltered. Do you know what you're asking? To put down my own brother in public, to stain my name with his sins. Elijah stepped closer, their faces inches apart. You think your name isn't already stained. You think silence washes it clean. The word struck deep. Marcus's lips parted, but no sound came. A sound broke the moment the crunch of gravel. Headlights swept across the yard. A car idled at the curb, engine low and rumbling. Both men tensed. Elijah whispered. Clay. Marcus scanned the car, shoulders tight. Not his. He drives the cruiser. This is different. The driver's door opened. A teenage boy emerged, phone in hand, his voice cracked with urgency. Mr. Elijah, they're saying online. Clay's streaming again. He's saying he's coming for you tonight. The boy's hands shook as he showed the screen. Clay's face filled it, red with fury, spitting into the camera. Cowards cheer in council chambers. That ends tonight. Elijah won't live to see morning. The live stream cut abruptly. Elijah's stomach hardened like iron. He looked at Marcus, voice steady but low. That's your brother. Marcus's face twisted. For a moment, he looked younger, lost. Then the soldier returned. Then we don't wait for him to find you. We end this before he spills more blood. Elijah's eyes searched him. You're saying we now? Marcus's silence was answer enough. Inside the house, Elijah's mother called through the screen door. What's going on out there? Elijah didn't look back. Nothing you need to see. But Marcus did glance at her. A weary softness flickered in his gaze. The memory of families shattered in battlefields far from home. He whispered, almost to himself, no more mothers burying sons. The two men stood shoulder to shoulder now, the air thick with the inevitability of collision. Elijah said, if you're with me, there's no turning back. Marcus answered, voice like gravel. If I'm with you, there's no turning back for him. The boy still lingered by the curb. What? Elijah pointed at him. Go home. Lock your doors. Tonight isn't for you. The boy hesitated, then bolted. Tires screeched as his car tore down the street. Silence returned, heavy and suffocating. Marcus cracked his neck. the soldier's ritual before a fight. He'll come armed. He'll come reckless. Elijah's eyes hardened. Then he'll come to his end. For the first time, Marcus allowed the ghost of a grim smile. Blood ties are not. Clay's about to learn what it means when justice doesn't kneel. The two men turned toward the darkness at the edge of the yard. Somewhere beyond, Clay Donovan prowled, his rage coiled like a viper dot, but for the first time, he wouldn't be facing silence. He would be facing brothers one by blood, one by oath united against him. The street was hushed, every porch light glowing like watchful eyes. A storm brewed in the sky, clouds moving heavy and black, but it was the storm on the ground that mattered. Elijah and Marcus stood side by side at the edge of the yard, gazes locked on the road that cut through the neighborhood like a scar. Neither spoke. Words were useless now. A low growl of an engine broke the silence. Headlights appeared, crawling closer. Clay Donovan's cruiser. It stopped in the middle of the street, engine humming, lights off. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. The door slammed open. Clay stepped out, uniform disheveled, eyes bloodshot, movements twitching with rage. His service pistol glinted in his hand. Brother, Clay spat at Marcus's voice, dripping venom. Didn't think you'd stoop low enough to stand with trash. Marcus didn't flinch. You're not my brother tonight. Clay laughed, harsh and jagged. You think this town's going to clap for you. You think siding with him makes you righteous. He jerked the pistol toward Elijah. This man's family has been nothing but a thorn in my side. And you, he jabbed the gun at Marcus. You're worse. You turned your back on blood. Elijah's voice rang steady. Blood doesn't excuse evil. Clay's face twisted, a demon of fury and wounded pride. You don't get to call me evil. I enforce order. I keep people like you in line. Marcus stepped forward, calm but lethal. You don't enforce order. You enforce fear. The tension snapped. Clay raised his gun, but Elijah was faster in words than in movement. Do it, Clay. Do it in front of all these cameras. From the shadows, phones lit up. Neighbors had gathered silently, drawn by whispers of what was coming. Screens glowed like stars, lenses pointed, recording. Clay froze mid-motion, the awareness seeping in. Dozens of witnesses, dozens of angles. Sweat slid down his temple. His voice cracked with fury. They'll believe me over you. Elijah's eyes burned. Not anymore. Not tonight. Clay's hand trembled on the pistol. He swung it toward Marcus. An util-to-force hero. You think combat tours make you judge and jury. You're nothing but a traitor in a uniform you can't wear anymore. Marcus's jaw tightened. At least I earned mine. The words cut deep. Clay snarled and lunged forward. Gun raised. A sharp click echoed. Marcus had drawn his sidearm in one fluid motion. Barrel trained on Clay. Elijah's voice boomed, louder than both. Drop it, Clay. End this. For a long, shuddering moment, no one breathed. Two brothers stood in the middle of the street, guns drawn, history between them like a canyon too wide to cross. Elijah stood rooted, unwilling to step back, unwilling to flinch. Then Clay laughed, a broken, high sound. He lowered his gun, not in surrender, but in mockery. You don't get it, do you? Even if you film me, even if you paint me as the monster, I'll walk. I'll walk because I'm needed, because I am this town's order. Marcus kept his aim steady. You're already finished. Clay's grin faltered. The voices of the neighbors, low and angry, rose like a tide. Murderer, coward, justice, phones in every direction. Evidence he couldn't burn, witnesses he couldn't bury. For the first time, Clay's bravado cracked. His eyes darted, chest heaving, gun twitching like a live wire. In one desperate motion, he raised his pistol again toward Elijah. This time, the shot never came. Marcus's finger squeezed first. A thunderclap split the night. Clay's gun spun from his hand as he dropped to his knees, clutching his shoulder, face pale with shock and pain. Screams and gasps erupted from the crowd, but no one looked away. Clay wheezed. You shot me. His voice was disbelief, betrayal. Marcus's eyes were cold steel. No, you shot yourself a long time ago. Tonight, I just ended it. Clay collapsed onto the asphalt, blood soaking his sleeve. The crowd surged closer, cameras still rolling, their voices unrelenting. Justice, justice. Blue lights wailed in the distance, sirens closing in. Elijah stepped forward, standing over Clay. His voice cut through the chaos, low but sharp as a blade. You thought the grave was yours to mock, but look at you now. The ground waits for everyone. Clay tried to snarl but only coughed, crimson spilling from his lips. The sound of sirens grew louder, sealing his fate. Marcus holstered his weapon, shoulders heavy but unshaken. He turned to Elijah. It's done. Elijah shook his head. No, it's only begun. Tomorrow, the world will see what happened here. The flashing lights flooded the street, illuminating everything. Clay broken on the ground, neighbors standing defiant, two brothers united not by blood, but by justice. And above them, thunder cracked, as if the sky itself bore witness. The hospital corridor smelled of antiseptic and fear. Reporters crowded outside the entrance, cameras ready, microphones thrust forward like weapons. The story had spread overnight. Viral footage of Clay Donovan bleeding in the streets, Elijah's defiance echoing through speakers across the country, Marcus's bullet sealing the end of his brother's reign. Inside, the police chief stood stiff before a bank of cameras. His face was gray, his words clipped, effective immediately. Officer Clay Donovan is suspended without pay, pending federal investigation. The crowd erupted with questions. What about the light? What about the grave? What about the missing complaints? The chief's jaw worked, but he had no answers. Silence spoke louder than denial. Across town, Elijah sat at his kitchen table, phone buzzing endlessly with notifications. His mother sat beside him, hands clasped tight around her coffee cup. They're calling you a hero, she whispered. Elijah shook his head. Heroes don't bury bros. The screen lit again. Another headline, another clip, another message demanding comment. But beneath the noise was one steady truth. The community no longer whispered. They shouted. Marcus entered through the back door, still in civilian clothes, his presence filling the room like gravity. He dropped a stack of papers on the table. Official statements, witness affidavits, screenshots of Clay's threats. It's all out there now, Marcus said. Even the feds can't bury this. Elijah stared at the stack. And what about you? You shot your own brother. How do you live with that? Marcus's face was unreadable, carved from years of war, but his voice cracked at the edges. I lived with worse overseas. I lived with men who killed strangers because they were told to. Clay wasn't a stranger. He chose every step he took toward this. He left me no choice. Their mother's hand trembled on her cup. No mother should have to hear her son speak this way. The silence that followed was heavy, carrying the weight of graves and choices alike. That afternoon, the council chamber filled again, this time with national press. The mayor took the podium, her face pale, eyes hollow. The footage from last night, the testimonies, the pattern of complaints. She inhaled sharply. This city failed. We failed to protect our citizens from the very officers sworn to serve them. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Admissions like this did not come easily, she continued, voice shaking. Effective immediately. An independent oversight board will investigate not only Clay Donovan, but every case touched by his hand. We will not allow silence to be complicity again. The crowd surged to its feet, applause crashing against the walls like thunder. Outside, protesters lined the streets, signs raised high, justice for the fallen, no more Donovans, power with the people. Chants rolled like waves, relentless. News helicopters circled overhead, broadcasting the city's reckoning to the world. In his hospital bed, Clay Donovan watched it unfold on television. His arm was bandaged, his body weak, but his eyes still burned with venom. He hissed through clenched teeth, "They think this ends me. They think one bullet erases who I am." He tried to sit up, but pain drove him back down. A nurse shot him a look of pure disgust before walking out without a word. Clay realized, for the first time, that the silence protecting him had cracked. That evening, Elijah stood on the church steps, the same place he'd spoken at his brother's funeral. This time, he wasn't alone in grief. Hundreds gathered, candles in hand, their faces illuminated by more than flamed by defiance, by solidarity. Elijah's voice carried over them, steady and resolute. My brother's name will not vanish into a file marked closed. His grave will not be mocked in silence. Clay Donovan thought fear would bury us, but tonight proves we are unburied. We are standing. Cheers erupted, echoing down the streets. Marcus stood at the edge of the crowd, head bowed. He wasn't there for cheers. He was there because he had no other place to be. As the vigil ended, Elijah found him. You don't have to stay, Elijah said. Marcus's eyes lifted, haunted but steady. I do. Clay was my blood. I carry that stain. The least I can do is help clean what he left behind. Elijah studied him for a long moment. Then stay, but understand you'll be judged not by your name, but by your actions. Marcus nodded. I know. That's why I'm still here. The night closed with a quiet that wasn't silence, but resilience. For the first time, the community wasn't hiding in shadows. They were the light. Clay Donovan had fallen, but the system that built him trembled next, its walls cracking under the weight of truth, and Elijah knew the fight was only just beginning. The courthouse steps were suffocating under the weight of bodies and cameras. Reporters swarmed like locusts, microphones thrust forward, the hum of live broadcasts filling the air. At the center of it all, Clay Donovan emerged in shackles. His once proud stride was gone, replaced by a limp, his wounded arm bound in a sling. Gone was the badge, gone the shield. Only the orange jumpsuit remained, glaring under the sun like a spotlight of shame. The crowd jeered, voices sharp and merciless. Murderer, coward, justice. Clay lifted his chin, but the swagger was hollow. His eyes darted from camera to camera, searching for a friendly lens. There were none. Inside the courtroom, silence pressed down like stone. The prosecutor's voice echoed. Officer Clay Donovan faces charges of murder, desecration, misconduct, and obstruction of justice. The people have spoken, and tonight the law must answer. Clay's attorney tried to object, tried to spin the story, but every screen in the nation had already played the truth. The grave, the funeral mockery, the live stream threats, the blood on the street. When the verdict was read guilty on all counts, the chamber erupted. Gasps, sobs, cheers, and the thunder of history being written. Clay's face drained of color. His brother's bullet hadn't ended him. The people had. Outside, Elijah stood on the steps with Marcus at his side. Reporters shouted questions. Elijah, do you feel vindicated? Marcus, any regret about pulling the trigger? What comes next for this city? Elijah raised his voice above the clamor. This isn't about me. It isn't about Marcus. It's about everyone. Clay silenced. Today proves silence can be broken. The words rippled through the crowd like a charge of electricity. Later, at the cemetery, Elijah returned to his brother's grave. The grass had grown back where Clay's boots had desecrated it, but the soil still bore the memory. He crouched, placing a fresh white lily against the headstone. His voice was quiet, meant only for the dead and the wind. They tried to bury your name, but now it's louder than ever. You didn't die for nothing. Behind him, Marcus stood at a respectful distance, head bowed. He hadn't come close to the grave, not yet. Blood was still a chain around his neck. Elijah glanced back. You can stand closer. My brother wouldn't blame you. Marcus's jaw tightened. Maybe not, but I still do. Night fell with a weight of finality. In his cell, Clay sat alone, the noise of jeers from outside faintly audible through barred windows. His hands shook as he traced invisible circles on his knee. He muttered to himself, voice cracking, "They'll need me again. Order always needs men like me. They'll call me back." But no one answered. The silence of a world moved on was the only reply. Across town, the community gathered once more, not for protest but for rebuilding. Streets once drowned in fear, now echoed with music and conversation. Children ran where once police cruisers loomed, on a makeshift stage. Elijah addressed them. This fight doesn't end with Clay Donovan. It doesn't end with one verdict. It ends when no one lives in fear of a badge or a gun. It ends when justice belongs to everyone. The crowd rose to its feet, voices united, chanting not just justice but future. When the gathering dispersed, Marcus approached Elijah quietly. His voice was rough, but steadier than before. I can't undo what Clay was, but I can choose what I'll be now. Elijah studied him, then nodded. Then choose right. Every day. That's all any of us can do. For the first time, Marcus extended his hand. Elijah clasped it, their grip firm, heavy with unspoken oaths. The camera lights, the chants, the protests, those would fade in time, but the echo of defiance would remain, stitched into the fabric of the city. Clay Donovan had mocked a grave and built his life on fear. Now he sat in chains, stripped of power, remembered not as a protector, but as a warning. And Elijah, carrying both grief and resolve, walked forward not as a symbol, not as a martyr, but as a man unwilling to kneel to silence. The fight was not over, but it had shifted. From ashes, echoes had risen,